Hello, everybody. I'm back. Today is May 11th, and we're doing government and robot today. And we have a special surprise, the return of a segment you guys all wanted.
But we missed it last week, Krista, so you didn't miss that. And I'm telling you, boy, is this stuff hard to source.
But before we get to that, this episode is brought to you by Linode, because Linode is awesome. And what better time to up your skills and deploy Linux hosting? They're cheaper than Amazon. So if you use Amazon AWS in your work, you should really check them out, because they're, in my experience, they're about 30-35% cheaper depending on what you're aiming to do. And great Linux hosting and all that. They just rolled out a VPN feature where they don't charge you for traffic, inter-Linode traffic. So from Linode A to Linode B, that no longer counts against you, which is pretty awesome.
And we've been doing our new, beginner video series. Some people complained, hey, I can't get my hands on the cheap computer, especially now. Well, Linode will let you do it for free for a limited amount of time, and you can decide whether or not you're into it.
$100 coupon below. So you sign up, and it's $100. And it's exciting because you get a $100 credit, and you can do whatever you want with that $100 credit in the first 3 months, more or less, pretty much. There's always some fine print there, but Linode's doing a solid here, and they got a lot of tutorials. It's exciting. Thank you, Linode.
And now, for something that's not sponsoring us at all,
completely different,
different segment.
And for all we actually, I think that probably this one's going to get shot down hard. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think so too.
But let's find out. I did not look at which os is in it. It's always an os. Fructose, sucrose, sucralose. Yeah. I don't know which one's in this one. But it's Big K. Krista, we should start calling you Big K.
I'm a big fan of Big K because I never bought the name brand soda growing up.
Would you like some?
No.
Why did you bring multiple cups?
So you can double fist it.
It's a big thing of soda. I thought maybe you'd want to finish it.
I'll just drink from it.
If you want to chug from it, I'm sure that would be great. I thought maybe,
Yeah, the chat would love that.
You felt more civilized.
Be civilized. Oh, that's a nice odor.
Bouquet.
The chemist went to a lot of trouble to get that odor.
Suddenly, level 1 fluid pouring ASMR channel.
I hear plenty of carbonation.
I'm not even getting a little bit. I'm just going to assume that I'm going to power through this regardless.
We need an overhead camera so you can watch it being poured into the glass.
It is definitely not well, I guess some oranges might be that color.
It's an antifreeze orange.
The best kind.
Yeah, this has a much more citrusy, much less diesel.
So last time it was, I've already forgotten.
Yeah, what
Fago.
What kind
it was Fago Diet Orange.
Yeah, Fago definitely had that diesel, hints of diesel. That's pretty good.
But you got to put it on the lineup. Where does it fall between Fago and Crush?
That's it's extremely more carbonated.
That's good.
Well, I mean,
subjective.
It's hard to taste over the carbonation.
Maybe that's the trick.
I think that's a sign of a good soda, though. I like a lot of bubbles.
It's not an overpowering orange. It's almost a cream soda orange.
Well, 0 calories, though.
Nice.
I could drink this.
On the bottle, it says 0 calories, drink freely.
I would be surprised if this is aspartame.
All right, let's find out. We got nothing better to do, right?
This is what the people come for.
Aspartame.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
It must be something else other than aspartame, because I don't taste the aspartame in this at all.
Aspartame is the 4th ingredient, and everything else above it is citric acid and water.
I definitely taste the citric acid. That's fascinating.
Contains phenylalanine, so you're getting your daily recommended value of that.
Isn't that like something that's very bad? Like my kidneys are like,
you don't want that.
Please.
I think they're required by law to put that on the label. Well, let's talk about some terrible news. And the first story is certainly some bad news. Now, if you followed along here for any length of time, you've heard a lot about driver's license data being sold to the government, license plate data being sold to the government, in some cases, medical health type of stuff being sold to the government, and all being used to track us by law enforcement or whoever, And we say, they're sidestepping the laws here. They can't get away with this. And they say,
well, in the driver's license side, they're also selling the data in the first place because technically that's governmental. But that makes it easier for like car and repo people to track you down.
or anybody who wants to track you down. So you think we need less of that, right?
One would think.
No.
The Biden team may partner with private firms to monitor extremist chatter online. Now, this is a very important distinction between selling your driver's license data. If the DMV sells driver's license data that has errors in it, chances are you're not going to get a SWAT team breaking your door down.
It's possible.
When the algorithm gets it wrong,
Also, and this is kind of a dumb argument, especially where we live, but you could choose to opt out of the driver's license and the license plate. You could still live like that.
It would not be a good living.
But you could do it.
It would definitely not be a good living.
But how do you avoid this? Because you never know where they're coming or what they're looking at.
Or who has stolen your identity and is posting extremist content online.
Now, you might be thinking, well, doesn't this make more sense, Mr. Libertarian? Don't we want private companies to fill in the gaps instead of wasting on government? But here's the thing. If the government does this, it's illegal.
Literally not constitutionally permitted.
And they're admitting that. They're like, well, legally, we can't do this, so let's just hire somebody else to do it, right? Problem
What
solved.
a loophole.
Yeah. Some people have obviously already made that argument and said we must not allow this, but I like the chances of this happening.
Yeah, it seems inevitable that it would happen.
And the other big fight that we keep hearing about is the, gig worker, the jobs. Oh, we're recording this on the 7th. Did you see the payroll? Anticipation between 1 and 2 million. Reality, 266,000.
Ooh.
Nobody's getting jobs right now. And I don't know if this is good or bad for that.
Biden blocks Trump's gig worker rule. So, the whole, can Uber Eats, do they have to go through all the headache of hiring a person, or can they just have an app where somebody picks up a job and runs with it? On the one hand, I could see the convenience of, I need to make $50 extra because, a game I want is coming out, or I want to buy something for a loved one or whatever. And, pick up a few things and get paid a few extra bucks and it's fine. But I also see that this is way, way, way open to abuse and is horribly abused. So this might be trying to side on the worker, but it might also have unintended consequences.
I think the biggest argument against it is that it will push out the alternatives.
Yeah.
So, how long can a regular taxi service survive in an Uber Lyft world?
Yeah.
And once that happens, what will they do then?
There's no going back. You can't reestablish that quickly.
Yeah. So it could be an issue. We'll see how that plays out. They've not actually done it yet. And another thing that we've learned is a huge, huge issue for our country. One of the biggest blind spots I think the government ever allowed to be created is the chip shortage. And the people watching this show are going to be affected more than others, maybe, but it's affecting everybody, and it's only getting worse. So what can you do? Well, basically you beg.
The U.S. Department of Commerce has pressed Taiwan for more chips to automakers. Please, please prioritize chips for automobile because we need our automobile industry. The fact of the matter is this is pretty much self-inflicted on the auto industry. They like to pride themselves on the fact that it's like, look, we spent $20 million overseas, but the profit margin on that $20 million was about $8.30. So at the start of the global situation, when those orders evaporated, those businesses had to move on to other things to survive because there was no subsidy money. So this is completely a result of their own just-in-time delivery. I have only the tiniest amount of sympathy for the auto industry for this.
And Taiwan and TSMC, they had statements about it, and they were diplomatic, but they were basically saying, you're in line, and you're going to stay where you are in line. They probably wouldn't have even given us that if they didn't really, really need those aircraft carriers in the South China Sea right now.
It's not even that simple a lot of the time because a lot of the chips that automakers wanted, they were the last people because they wanted the last crappiest chips. And nobody wants, that equipment doesn't exist anymore. When it was turned off, it's not going to be turned back on.
Dark times. Did you see the F-150s They're
Yeah.
building them,
The fuel.
except for one part.
Yeah.
And then they're just
They're
parking
just
them.
sitting in a parking lot. Yeah, that's here in Kentucky.
Again, self-inflicted just-in-time delivery. Look, we've squeezed our manufacturing partners to the point that their profit margins are non-existent. We win. It's like, well, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to taper the introduction of those once they put the chips in, or if they're just going to flood the market.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Well, let's harken back to when everybody's favorite FCC chairman was in power, Mr. Ajit Pai.
Oh, he's got a new job now.
Oh, what's he doing now?
He has gone to an equity capital partners group that works in the telecom industry.
He found the one place that was worse.
Yeah.
But if you'll recall, he did away with net neutrality, and it was not popular. But he defended his decision based on those many customer, complaints and, or in this case, support feedback comments. But there was just a bit of controversy based around that. And,
Only a tiny little bit.
Yeah.
and we said, will we ever find out what really happened there? Well, this sounds like a really likely situation.
This sounds criminal.
Yeah.
The Associated Press is reporting that New York prosecutors have uncovered that broadband companies paid $8.5 million for fake net neutrality comments, including using a download of one of those data breaches where everybody's information was stolen. Not mentioned in this article, but one of the companies also used subscriber information from one of the companies that paid for this. It was like, well, we don't have a list of people that actually want to do this. And the telecommunications company said, boom, here's our subscriber list. All of our subscribers, by subscribing to us, and the fine print of the terms and conditions say that they'll support, whatever we want in terms of policy making. Let's submit this to the FCC.
Now, this was technically...
5 million.
Yeah. They were only fined $4.4 million. It was still a net profit.
But it wasn't the telecom companies. And there's a tiny distinction here because the telecom companies obviously had third-party marketing companies or PR companies working for them. And the New York Attorney General did point out, they're like, well, we can't prove that they knew that fraud was going to happen. All we know is that they paid these people. So the telecom companies are like, hey, not us. We didn't do it. So they will walk away. But as you say, those marketing companies will get a tiny fine.
Now, there's a really interesting loophole, and I really hope the criminal prosecutors latch onto this, because I think that there is clear-cut evidence of fraud and conspiracy and criminal activity here. And the reason for that is the FCC's commenting system requires API keys, and they don't just hand those out. You have to pretty much give them your blood type and your kidney, and there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through to get those. These were submitted through the API. The FCC took extraordinary steps to keep that system up and running. Because Ajit Pai didn't immediately look at this and be like, guys, why is ABC Marketing Limited submitting 4 million comments to this? He is one of the conspirators in this whole thing. It's definitely criminal, and it would have been readily apparent if he had any kind of honest intention about dealing with this.
But even beyond what you're claiming, there were cries for an investigation. I think there was an investigation.
Yeah, and he was like, it's fine.
And it was ruled, it's like, no, these are real people. We would know.
Yeah.
But now we know that even the most cursory glance
Yeah.
would reveal that to be untrue.
How
At the very least, they should be punished for just blind incompetence, if nothing else.
it's not even you can't never attribute to malice what can adequately be explained by incompetence, but this is literal criminal behavior and nothing.
But Krista, it's what's going to happen is the opposite of what you say, because this is a $4.4 million commercial, a priceless commercial that these companies got, because now their reputation is, if it has to get done and you need somebody who's going to, sidestep some rules, these are your guys.
Yeah.
So they'll be rewarded,
Absolutely.
which is even better.
And so will the Ajit Pai.
He's already has been rewarded with his golden parachute.
The White House wants to reward you, that is, if you're a young person interested in artificial intelligence, because they might not understand even the most basic concepts of artificial intelligence, but they do understand one thing: China. And China is breathing down our throat when it comes to this.
White House has launched a new artificial intelligence website. Everybody should check that out.
doesn't really do a whole lot, but it does supposedly give you some avenues to explore further
Neat.
to figure out your job. And on there's a bunch of equity stuff in there too.
We can get a bunch of AI news from here for our AI section.
Oh yeah,
New
I'm sure that'll be
source.
the cutting edge of AI technology. Oh, we're going back for more, huh?
We're gonna get a little bit more. I am starting to get the little bit of the aspartame thing, but it's not immediately apparent from the taste.
It's important
Ride
to
that
take it
wave.
right to that point before you stop.
Ride the orange wave.
And another big argument that rages on, and I think we're losing at this point. Would you say we're losing?
Yes.
Yeah, we're definitely. And probably one of the reasons that we're losing is because we get these kinds of things, which maybe it's a nice headline, but nothing happens.
The FTC report blasts manufacturers for restricting product repairs. This report said that there is scant evidence to support the fact that users repairing their own devices is somehow dangerous or somehow leads to phones exploding in people's faces. It turns out, as coddled as we are as a society, people are not so retarded that they stab batteries with screwdrivers and then just, start licking or eating the fumes coming out of the battery.
We should say not all people. I'm sure there's at least one out there.
So,
But that's no excuse for the rest of us should have to suffer. So they pointed out all the obvious stuff, the glue, the non-replaceable batteries, the ribbon cables that are just in the right spot that guarantee you rip them in half.
yeah.
And it's all stuff we knew about. I guess the FTC is just finding out.
Remember when Ajit Pai was like, the FTC is going to handle all this stuff competently on the network side too. And it's like, they can't even, it's like, we can repair our automobiles, which are far more dangerous than our phones.
This story drives me crazy because here's my argument. And no argument you make, you could never convince me the opposite of this. If Snapchat is slightly responsible here, let's say they're at all responsible, aren't the parents way more responsible? Let's punish them.
Snapchat can be sued over role in fatal car crash, court rules. And this is because Snapchat has a mode where it's like speed mode or whatever, where Snapchat knows how fast you're going. And when you create a Snapchat or whatever with that, it'll have the speed there. So they were trying to do that. And because of that, they have some culpability here.
So they got
Wouldn't
up to
you
like
say that the car also has some culpability then? Because the car also has a speed reader on it.
as much as Snapchat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to 123 miles an hour, and then, as you might imagine, bad things happened.
At the risk of opening Pandora's box with this week's controversy challenge, how does this factor in for Fox News and the Capitol insurrection?
Oh,
Well,
the comments are going to be.
are we blaming social media for that? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
I mean, if you were if the thing here was they were goaded into doing that because whatever. Could
But-
the other people make the argument that they were goaded into doing whatever it was that they're now arrested for?
Nancy Pelosi has absolutely made that argument about Facebook. She wants to use that as an avenue to attack Facebook.
Well, we've got another story in business about hoverboards that's the exact same trend, so things could get interesting.
But see, I agree with that one.
Because
It's different because when you're selling a product,
a substandard product.
you
yeah.
should be aware of what that product will do.
Like the
I-
Peloton bike.
I'm sure that Snapchat, well, if they didn't, I'm sure they do now, but I'm sure they had some little pop-up that was like, okay, don't be reckless with this.
Reminder: don't be stupid.
Which is a useless reminder because if you're stupid. We have been hearing about, NASA. We're going back to the moon. How exciting is that? But who's going to take us there?
Just like Dogecoin.
It was. Let's hope that this doesn't crash the way Dogecoin probably will. But who's going to take them there? And there was, this bidding war, and SpaceX won it handily, but Bezos immediately cried foul, and maybe there's something to it.
SpaceX is not going to receive the NASA funding. They have suspended their $2.9 billion moon lander contract after the rivals' protest. So this is just at least until the Government Accountability Office or the Government Accounting Office or whoever can look over the contract. It's an independent third party. They're completely outside NASA. They're going to look at it and say, okay, yes, no, maybe, whatever. This is just a formality. This is how this is always handled.
Bezos claimed that he was not given the chance to revise his submission. to deal with a lower budget, and they basically just gave it to Musk as soon as he said, yes, we'll do it for that ridiculously low price.
This is not unusual. I mean, there have been times where, this is just, it's not unusual. Sometimes when the government's getting fleeced by big companies like Accenture and other companies, they'll put out a bid for like smaller contractors. And when those contracts come in at like, a third of the price, then Accenture sues. That's just, it's the cycle of life.
The cycle of government contracting.
It's a cycle of corruption.
Yeah.
Crony capitalism. That's what it is. Not life. That's the opposite of life. And another horrible, horrible headline. What's wrong with us as a people?
Can we eject Florida from the union?
We have a similar sort of law here in Kentucky now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the insulting one.
Yeah, you can't. If he feels insulted, you can go to jail.
I think this is going to go a really long way to repair the rift between law enforcement and the people.
Recording a cop in Florida, one woman got arrested for it. It went to the state Supreme Court there, and 2 out of 3 judges sided with law enforcement. The dissenting judge, the dissent was really entertaining to read. You should read that. A lot of it is quoted in this article. The dissenting judge, if I might summarize, is, are you all insane?
So this was a mother. Her son was getting arrested. I think he'd gotten pulled over. I don't know why she was there.
No. He was arrested and taken, and she was coming to pick him up at the police station, and she was just preemptively recording.
Oh, okay.
Because she was like, they're going to do something to me, and I just want it on camera, and they wouldn't even let her in the building.
But I think she was also quite vitriolic.
Yeah.
I mean, she was...
You can watch the video.
She was surely an annoying person. But if you work in that business, you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
They were outside, and the judge said you were invading the officer's privacy. And it's like, the dissenting judge was like, are you insane?
There's a great video. I don't know how you would search for it, but it's a cop, and he's got a woman pulled over, and she's trying to goad him. I mean, she's just really letting him have, over the whole race thing. And he's not even white. He's like, some sort of South American. And he is like the picture of professionalism. He will not tolerate any of it. And he goes through the motions, gives her paperwork, and then she turns around and blasts him for being Mexican.
It's like, wait, what?
What terrible people.
And speaking of Florida...
Terrible people.
Should we try to come up with a program that results in them sinking into the ocean? I don't know. Maybe we could discuss it.
Just saw them off.
But in the meantime, I got to say, I don't know if I agree or disagree with this one. I mean, it is free speech, but it's also free speech to reject whoever you want.
Yeah.
I would not, and I would do it. I wouldn't even consult with these guys. They'd have to undo it afterwards, and I would fight them every breath of the way. If Joe Biden joins the Level 1 forum, he's out.
Deleted.
I'm not letting him post there.
In nod to Trump, Florida is set to ban deplatforming by tech companies. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube could be fined for banning political candidates under a bill passed by Florida's legislature. Critics say it's unconstitutional. I mean, these are private forums. They can do what they want, but at the same time, they have consolidated to such a degree that, I don't know.
But also, how is that a state level?
Yeah.
Like, how do you enforce that?
Well, you
'Cause
put
Twitter's
a firewall on Florida.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the China thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That lays the groundwork for seceding from the internet. That's going to be the next thing.
Florida. What would Florida's internet look like?
Oh, it'd be something else.
It'd be
North Korea.
terrifying.
It would mostly be malware, I got to think, right?
Yeah.
Malware and timeshares for nice condos.
And, well, all those old people.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of old people content.
A lot of Magnum PI trying to sell me a reverse mortgage.
Diabetic
Minion
testing
memes.
supplies.
Yeah.
Big. That'd be big. What was your thing, Krista?
Minion memes. Like what
that-
the old people share on Facebook. Yeah, it's Minions from that movie that's like a Disney movie.
But didn't that movie
But then they
come
just
out-
put like corny sayings over it.
Old people like that?
Yeah, they love that. I don't know why.
Old people are also super into cats.
Yeah, also true.
Well, I can't fault them for that. Now, you accidentally attributed this to the other section.
I thought this was a business story.
Maybe it could have been sorted better. I won't listen to that kind of criticism, but could be. But yeah, this is kind of the same argument. But again, I think I'm on the other side of this one because you should be able to trust someone who's selling you something. And
Right.
if you can't, you should be able to do something about that. They shouldn't be able to say, it's like, oh, it wasn't us, because it was you.
A hoverboard burst into flames. It could change the way that Amazon does business. This is, of course, the one-wheel deals. This was actually sold by a Chinese company through. At the ends. This was actually sold by a Chinese company through Amazon, which is now out of business, and also the Chinese company is out of business. And Amazon was kind of left holding the bag. And Amazon said, hey, look, we just connect buyers and sellers. We don't have anything to do with this. It's not clear if it was even sold and shipped by Amazon. It might have been sold and shipped by a third-party seller. Because of that, I'm like, well, I don't know. Amazon's kind of like eBay in this scenario.
Yeah, but in every other story we've talked about where the government is concerned, we assume a level of sophistication for the user that is near, like non-living organisms. So all of a sudden in this situation, we expect them to understand that I went to Amazon.com, I clicked buy, but Amazon is not selling me this thing.
Well, okay, I get what you're saying, but I think the end result of this is going to be, as a seller, do you agree that your products are UL listed and tested and blah blah blah? Because there are laws, like things are supposed to be UL listed and FCC certified and all that kind of stuff.
Heesung is going to check every one of those boxes, and he's not going to know.
Yeah,
and then what happens?
Amazon is not going to check that.
And let's say that this happens again, and they're like, "Oh, they lied about that." What are they going to do to them? Chinese nationals?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they have no way to actually handle it.
And then when it becomes the known that Chinese company was actually behind the Amazon Basics brand, then okay, Amazon's really like they're in trouble.
Then we rename Amazon Basics the next year.
Yeah, I've never had another DisplayPort cable set a video card on fire other than Amazon Basics, so that's neat.
Well, it turns out setting things on fire is something they're really good at.
It seems like Amazon would have an interest in fixing all this anyway, just because I feel like their brand is getting a lot of bad press lately. Where it's like, oh, I don't even go to Amazon anymore because it's all cheap Chinese crap. Like, you'd think they have an interest in fixing this prior to being told to do so by a judge. But
they're going to use this as a wedge to make their legitimate sellers' lives much more difficult and also create a business opportunity for themselves to sell their own products.
Yeah.
Well, that was obviously a lead-in because we know that Amazon Basics and the Amazon, what do they call their clothing brand? Anyway, we've seen story after story where people say, hey, I posted this backpack or cable or
I was
whatever.
making too much money.
And I was doing really well, and I was working with Amazon. They were giving me all this feedback, and then all of a sudden, I fell out of the search rankings, and I found out that they were selling my product, or at least something that looked a lot like it.
Amazon knew seller data was used to boost company sales. Now, you might remember from about 17 episodes ago, we had the Jeff Bezos quote, the Congress critter testimony. He's like, no, we don't knowingly use seller data. But it might have, it's probably been violated, but, it's our policy. Well, it turns out that the level of security between the people that might be interested in that information and where that information was zero. It was basically like, guys, we've got a folder named seller's sale data. Don't go in there. But if you do, there's no record for us to look at that you were in there. So good luck. Don't go in there.
But it becomes a question similar to, remember when Google had their sexual harassment big thing and all the top guys were like, hey, listen, we didn't know. And everybody was like, wait a minute, how did you not know? This is a big deal. No one told you about this? And I got to think the same thing with Bezos, right?
Yeah.
How could he not know?
Don't tell me about the murders. I don't need to know about the murders. I just need to know it's handled.
So he did testify, like you said, in front of Congress there. So this could prove that to be a lie. I doubt they'll try to go after him.
No, they're definitely not. He left himself an out there. It's like, oh, it's our policy, but our policy's been violated. Never mind that architecturally it was set up that way.
But if I'm an investor, couldn't I go to him and be like, well, you're clearly not doing everything you could for me.
Yeah.
If you didn't know this,
yeah,
I want some money from you. And then he'll have you killed. ARM, is it the future? Apple certainly seems to be striking out in that direction. And Nvidia is also betting big on it. But those people over there across the pond, it's all they've ever had as far as technology. And they desperately, desperately don't want it to be turned into something evil.
ARM pioneer, NVIDIA's Grace CPU is proof that it will compete unfairly. And I got to say, the quote from NVIDIA, I think sums up my view on this pretty well, which was, I don't think that they understand what Grace is. Because Grace existed before the purchase of ARM. their whole argument is that Nvidia's proprietary interconnect, which has existed for 5 or 6 years at this point, because it's not open to other ARM customers, it will compete unfairly. It will allow Nvidia to compete unfairly with other ARM customers because the other ARM customers don't have the advantage of that interconnect. But there are other ARM customers that have their own other different proprietary interconnect technology that is also not shared with ARM customers. So the argument really falls apart with that.
Well, see, they definitely seem to be, I think they're just fishing for money here, don't you?
No, I think this is the impassioned argument of somebody who genuinely cares about ARM, and knowing that Nvidia is very profit oriented, I think that he sort of sees that ARM will become more profit oriented than quote unquote the good of the industry. And I could see how the Nvidia acquisition would lead to ARM choosing avenues that are more profitable versus things that are better for the industry.
If chip companies weren't profit oriented, we'd still be banging rocks together.
Well, I mean, like extreme profit oriented versus, because it's not a direct path from A to B sometimes.
We'll see. I don't think they're going to be able to stop it, but they're going to be as loud as they can.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to stop it either. And I don't ultimately think it'll be a bad thing.
Now, when it comes to losing free speech because the world's gone crazy and we're now all online threatening each other, that sounds like a familiar tune here in the U.S. But this is not about the U.S. This is about Canada. And Canada seems to have jumped several steps here and just got straight to the
straight to
most
North Korea.
Yeah.
Full-blown assault on free expression inside the comprehensive liberal bill to regulate the internet. This is really insidious, and I can't help but think that this is one of those things where it's basically like, all right, in order for us to address this, we need to turn off the internet. And it's like, oh, ha, 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 no, where's your real proposal? It's like, no, we're going to turn off the internet. This is going to be amazing, and everything's going to go back to normal, and it's going to be great. When in reality, they want to do something so insidious that it would never pass unless their argument was so insane as to be, let's turn off the internet. That's how I read this bill. They want to do things that are so insane and so deliberately misrepresent how things are with technology that their goal can only be to try to get something that would otherwise be unpalatable to seem better in comparison to this horse drivel.
So they actually, when they launched this bill, they said, look, we're not crazy. We're not going after individual posts from individual people.
Oh, but they could.
Not on a forum or on Twitter or something like that. We're going after like extremist videos and blog posts and stuff like that, stuff that media. But we're not going after your individual posts. And this is the problem with modern politics. As soon as it got into committee, they popped in that social media thing, or they removed the limitation from it. So this is everything. It is now whatever goes on the internet, they can control.
We need to delete that immediately. And it's like, oh, that's like Ministry of Truth levels of rewriting.
If it wasn't for their maple syrup, I say just close the borders.
Listen, we'll be making our own maple syrup next year.
What else do we need from them? Alex Trebek is dead.
Rip in peace.
We need his DNA. We can clone a new one.
An American one. Well, China, their space program is picking up, and they launched their maiden voyage to build their new space station. What was it, Harmony?
Yeah.
Global Harmony or something like that?
On Long March rockets. We talked about that. Was it last week before?
Yeah, and it was successful, but the main booster, or the main center part, I can't remember what they call it, it was too good. It overperformed and has caused a problem.
Huge rocket looks set for uncontrolled re-entry following Chinese space station launch. So NASA and others have reached out and said, yeah, congratulations on your launch. Are you going to pilot the Long March rocket, so that it crashes into the ocean? Or, what's going on with that? And China is not returning their calls. And
good luck, everybody.
Some amateur astronomers, they think they got a fix on it, and they can see that it's tumbling. And usually when it's tumbling, that's not a good idea because it means that whatever system might have been in it to handle reentry is offline. So it sure looks like it's going to come down in some random place between South America and New York.
And some
by the time they're watching this, it's probably already come down, right? It's supposed to be this weekend.
They weren't sure because they have no idea how fast it's degrading.
Could be 2 days, could be a week.
But it will probably break up to some extent. So you won't get the full booster falling on your house. You'll get flaming shards of it.
But at least it's not like flaming Tesla batteries.
Way easier to put out. Actually, it'd probably go out during the descent.
Yeah.
Not a lot of fuel there.
What are the chances of your insurance company paying that out if a piece of a Chinese rocket hits your house?
That's a good question. Is that force majeure?
Yeah.
I mean, God didn't do it. The Chinese did it.
Well, you can sue them in international court. Good luck, your insurance company will say.
Yeah. It'd be like going after them when they do the Amazon stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen. But China, as we said earlier about the artificial intelligence, China and the U.S. are both desperate to get their young people empowered to learn technology, because that's where it all, that's the future of warfare. That's the future of everything. And you need a brain trust to pull from. And we do things like the AI website, or we'll have these little competitions or whatever. And China said, oh, let's do that too. But being the Communist Party, they couldn't leave it at that.
How China turned a prize-winning iPhone hack against the Uyghurs. So it's like, hey, can we improve phone security by breaking into phones? Oh, this is really great. MIT was involved here. I bet that's a big oops.
A little bit of a mark on their reputation.
And a bunch of students won. They figured out all kinds of stuff for the iPhones. The Chinese military immediately co-opted that and used it to track the Uyghurs.
Yeah, so MIT tracked down. They figured out how this was being used to track those poor people.
Very disappointing.
So many internal organs from that one little hack.
How upset would you be if you were like a member of this group that basically gave them the chance to take out these poor Uyghurs?
Do you put that on your LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely not. It's awful.
But it's got results, right? And the other way that they are trying to deal with this whole lack of talent is to go abroad for it. But sometimes if you're China, you've made enemies along the way, and that could hurt you.
Taiwan bans recruitment for jobs in China to combat the brain drain. So sometimes you just win economically. It's like, oh, do you work in this industry? We're going to double, triple, quadruple your salary. Just move to mainland China. And we don't even necessarily have anything for you to do. But if you're working for us, you're not working for them. Bold strategy.
Yeah, really bold, because there's the old saying, trade wars lead to hot wars. And oh boy, are things already warm in the South China Sea.
Yeah, a lot of aircraft carriers there lately, I've noticed.
If you were a Taiwanese employee and you got an offer from a Chinese company, would you do it?
No.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think I would either.
Yeah.
I'd be a little afraid that I might get disappeared if I spoke out.
Yeah.
But I would politely decline.
Oh yeah. I'd spend a long time on that email.
Oh, that's very flattering. Thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate it.
In India, they have, India's a little bit behind most of the Western world when it comes
They're
to
rapidly modernizing them.
adopting new technology. And there's just so many people there, though. It's such a huge market that these companies, they want to be a part of it. And of course, 5G. They are desperate to get in there and try to get to that 5G market. And India's kind of been slow playing them, but they've finally made some decisions, and it's kind of a surprising one. Maybe not that surprising, because remember they kind of went to a hot war there for a minute?
Yeah.
They're definitely,
like a split second.
they're not BFFs, but they're following a Western trend, which I'm sure is not going to make Jinping happy.
India grants approval for 5G trials and avoids Chinese firms. So like Huawei and stuff like that. They actually disclosed, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but like I guess it was MI5 and the US disclosed some of the vulnerabilities in some of the Huawei equipment, and it would be hard for me to explain how that would have happened unintentionally, even with the worst of programmers.
Even his son?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, oh wow, that's incredible. And this has been hiding in plain sight the entire time? Wow.
So they talked to some of the government people in India about this, and their take on it was just like, hey, listen, we told the hardware guys, use whoever you want, and they chose not to use those guys. Based on what we've heard about India's government in the past, I don't believe that. I think they did have something to do with it.
Although if they do have a government where it's like, look, I don't know anything about technology. I'm going to leave it to our smart technology people to figure that out. Bravo. No one else's government has anything like that where the politicians don't stick their nose where it doesn't belong.
But the problem with that is that politicians don't know any smart people about technology. They know famous people about technology. So they're not going to go to the right people. And even if they did, they would immediately be turned off by the terrible personalities of those people. So I don't know how we get around that. But I do know that we should immediately open the basement to this. We should start one of these. I don't know who'll do the coaching because we're not good, but we can just pretend maybe.
Japan is opening its first ever esports gym in Tokyo, where people can book 3-hour slots at PCs and pay for coaching from professional gamers. I can't believe this is a business model.
I can believe it. I can't believe people would pay for the coaching because you can get that for free online. But
there is probably enough room in the basement for us to have a reasonable cafe.
Yeah. I'd be like, all right, so here's what you want to do. When the crosshairs are on the enemy, that's when you want to click. That's $50.
I got some like I did when I did that MSI thing. They had the Dota players, like the Ivy League Dota players. I don't know what superlative to give them. I'm sorry. And they were coaching me because I had never played Dota. And it was like I would have never figured stuff out. They were like, do this, and then this combination of items on this hero does this. I was like, that's amazing.
The meta right now is to use this hero. Don't even bother with this one.
I mean, I understand that because I used to play StarCraft, but I mean, it was just like, let's not do this.
Yeah. Well, is Dota still popular?
Yeah.
I guess it is over there.
Yeah, it is.
Well, do you remember the big Tesla crash, the most recent one at least, where there was a great mystery? And the mystery remains unsolved, but we have more information.
I love this picture.
Yeah, it's pretty damning, isn't it?
One of Autopilot's features was active in fatal Tesla crash. This is the picture. Like, look at this picture. This is amazing. Bravo, CNN Business. Excellent, excellent work. So Elon Musk tweeted, hey, Autopilot was not active, but Autopilot refers to a suite of like 3 or 4 things, and that car didn't have the subscription for all the things, but it did have cruise control, which is kind of part of Autopilot, and that was active.
And it didn't have the lane assist thing, which is the steering part. But how does a cruise control get it that wrong? Because weren't they doing like 90 when they hit the tree?
Well, this article said it was only 30, but the police examiner or whatever said that for that level of car damage to have occurred, they had to have been going 90 when they hit the tree.
Are they pulling 30 from the onboard diagnostics? How do we know that number? Because I remember they definitely said 90.
The crash examiner people said 90. The Tesla data people say 30.
Oh, well, Tesla.
Yeah, of course Tesla's going to say it's lower because they want it to look like it's safer than it maybe really is.
So that's the other thing. Musk tweeted, obviously, that they did not have any autopilot. Was he splitting hairs? Is autopilot to him both things on at once?
I would think so. Because cruise control, like, cars from the 70s have cruise control.
Yeah.
But not this cruise control.
Where it's like optical.
This is a smart, like this cruise control doesn't set a speed. It follows.
Yeah. And it tries to figure out the speed limit where you are.
And how did it follow the tree? There's a lot of questions that still remain here. I'm not sure we're ever going to get answers there, which is disappointing. But GM, yes, that's right. GM, the company that bought a fake self-driving company. Or no, it was just electric trucks. They weren't self-driving.
Yeah,
right?
they were going downhill in the truck.
Yeah, they bought fake electric trucks, but yet they still feel confident. I'm not sure why.
GM expects to offer self-driving vehicles to consumers this decade. Well, that seems like a safe bet with the year ending in 1 at this point.
They did give themselves quite a while to do it.
Is GM, like, are they intentionally trying to become a joke in the public eye? I mean, what a terrible...
They don't know what to do.
Like, why would you even run with this as a headline? This is terrible.
Because they're so out of touch.
Their PR company needs, like... I wonder if their PR company was, like, dealing with the executives like, no, this is not a good idea. We need to not do this. And that one executive was like, I think it's a good idea. I think we need to get back out there, get back on that horse after the whole Nikola controversy and show people that we're going to bring them a self-driving car this decade. I mean, that's practically the speed of light in this industry. And it's like,
But you've already got so many other companies that have announced already. And they're putting all, they have Super Cruise, which is the thing they have in the Cadillacs right now. And then they got another program. And they are going to keep those separate, which is weird.
it's just like Autopilot in the Tesla. Like, he's monetizing that 7 different ways, and it's the same feature.
Disgusting.
Can I have auto steering without cruise control? That would be a neat trick.
So you have to control the pedal. So, yeah, I don't think that would help.
I'll just get a brick and find the right angle for the brick.
Perfect.
They get up there pretty fast. It would be dangerous. And so we think about self-driving cars, like one of the fantasies, I guess, is, oh, we don't have to have public transportation anymore because, you're not using your car most of the day. We can just ride share, and all these cars, they can operate like that. And China is kind of looking at a blended version, which is interesting.
A Chinese company has started charging for fully driverless rides. China is the world's strongest self-driving industry after the United States. So they're just saying, hey, we're just going to treat this like everything else. You get in, you get charged.
But it's like Super Cruise in the sense that it's only in this one area.
Yeah.
And they've perfectly mapped all the streets. And you can't just get in one of these cars and be like, take me to my house. They have preset pickup and drop-off points. It's kind of like
basically
a bus.
just buses with more stops.
Yeah. Well, comfortable
More steps.
buses that don't stink.
Buses where you can be assured that you're not going to be next to someone that's insane.
They could still stink. You don't know what the former passengers were doing in there.
That's true. Maybe they don't stink first. If you're the first ride of the day, maybe they won't stink.
Oh, see, actually, that's a good point. So if you're, trying to be responsible, after a night out, you're like, okay, I'm going to take one of these cars back to my house or back to my stop or whatever. What if someone else had that same idea before you and then vomited in the car?
Wasn't there? I think there's a lawsuit where somebody called a ride service, but they were vomiting as the person pulled up. The driver pulled up. And the driver was just like, no, not doing it. And then something bad happened, right?
I think the ride sharing service. We'll have to follow up on that. But I think that was an Uber thing.
But Krista, the argument is, can you turn a person down in good faith, especially if they're drunk, or are you now culpable, like Snapchat is, for whatever happens to them for the rest of the night?
I always thought you could turn them down, but maybe not. So I had an experience like this. This is what made me think, because me and my friends went dancing a couple years ago, and we called an Uber, and the Uber was late. And we were like, well, that's weird. What's going on? And the guy came in, and he was like, sorry, I had someone vomit in the van. And I was like, oh. But he'd cleaned it, but that one had a driver. If you didn't have a driver to know, hey, I need to clean up the vomit, what happens?
Oh, I'm sure there'll be cameras all over those things.
All of my subsequent rides would have, a thin layer of plastic all over everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely going to bring up a lot. What is the worst thing for society? Drunk driving or vomit-filled cars?
I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd pick vomit-filled car, but
Unless it was your car.
Interesting edge case.
That's a not in my backyard kind of thing.
But yeah, people dying because of car crashes is worse, though.
But, well, if you're on the other end of that car crash, it certainly is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, up on the red planet, our little robots are up there. They're busy, and oh God, are they overachieving.
Mars Ingenuity helicopter goes farther and faster for dramatic 4th flight. Woo!
Look at him go. There's a video there.
Pretty cool. Boy, he is getting dusty quick, isn't he? Look at him.
It's almost like there's no water up there.
If only there was some plant life to keep everything from moving around.
How many flights do you think they'll get?
No, probably not a lot more.
I'm going to say close to, but less than 10.
Probably, maybe, possibly.
What a trooper.
Should fly it into an active volcano if it's got one.
Yeah, that's what it deserves. It's served us tirelessly.
So well.
Let's destroy it. Now, Krista, when it comes to the employment situation for humans, it seems to be that the jobs are there, but people don't want them. But when it comes to dogs, dog jobs are disappearing rapidly. But good news for little Rue, should she ever want to go into law enforcement.
New York returns its police Robodog after a public outcry. City residents and elected officials pushed back after videos showed the Boston Dynamics robot in action. Why Why wouldn't you like him though?
Well, this was an AOC soundbite, so of course, guess why they did it, Krista? Guess what they blamed?
I don't.
Diversity.
Racist.
He's a robot.
He's a racist little dog. That's what he is, or at least according to her. Now, her argument was you only ever deployed this in communities of color. And the cops were like, that's where the hostage was. What? We used a robot because there was a hostage, but they wouldn't have it. So they've canceled the lease. Also, it turns out you can, as like a law enforcement or government agencies, you can buy stuff if it's less than $100,000 without oversight. So
aren't these like 75,000 like base price?
Probably for that
little
reason.
robot dogs.
97 for what they got. So they
Wow.
was right under the cutoff. And that is probably a bad policy.
I remember when it was like $500. Oh, we'll just put that $500 on a credit card. It's fine.
Prepaid Visa. Put it on an iTunes gift card. I want to do some shopping online with some Indian fellows. Now, I put 3D printer news in the robot section. A 3D printer, is it a robot, do you think?
Yeah, kind
It
of.
kind of is, but I feel it fits here better than any place else. And I have to say, I'm super excited about this 3D printer. I think this is way more useful than the polymer stuff.
Yeah, a new printer uses sawdust to print wooden objects. They have wooden filament, but this is basically wood glue and sawdust. Wood glue and sawdust you wouldn't think is like an incredible thing, but in this building and also my home, things like where the hinges have, over 100 years have like worn out little holes and stuff. If you just squirt some wood glue back in there, it's not great. But if you mix a bunch of sawdust in with the wood glue and squirt it in the screw hole and then like clamp up the door where you need it to be and let it dry, OMG, that is a great solution for dealing with that. And so having stuff like this printable on demand out of that is super exciting.
Now, this picture, you're thinking, wow, those look really good. And they do, but these have been sanded.
Yeah.
Probably quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come out pretty rough. Here's some pictures of it. It does still print in 3 dimensions, just like a regular 3D printer, but it is, like you say, mixing glue with sawdust to print that out.
It's probably cheaper to print particle board and stuff like that now. Lumber that used to be $1 a board now is like $8-9 a board.
Yeah, it's at
I need to
least,
get some raised beds, and it's like impossible to find, cheap wood to do that.
yeah, it's like at least 300% since first of last year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have invested in a bunch of lumber.
Should have just stored all the lumber and just sell it out of the basement.
That's what some
mean-
some places have done. They bought a bunch of lumber. They knew this was going to happen, and it's in a warehouse, and they're just...
I mean, you're kind of doing that, Wendell. You've got the little basement full of old lumber.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had anybody come look at that, but that's on the to-do list.
Free nails, just have to remove them.
Well, I mean, they're offering me, if they're like, if you just go ahead and denail it, it's like, well, maybe I could hire some people to come in and denail this because that is a non-trivial amount of money.
Did I tell the
Christ.
joke last week? I did, didn't I? What's the difference between a Waffle House waitress and your lumber?
That sounds familiar, yeah, but I don't remember the punchline.
You can denail your lumber.
Ah.
And speaking of terrible, terrible sexual jokes and other content,
What a
It's-
great lead-in.
this is, you file this other one, Why We Can't Have Nice Things.
Text adventure game community in chaos over moderators reading their... I'm not going to say that word because I don't want to trigger the algorithm. We've done so well. This is...
Creative writing.
This was AI
Dungeon.
Dungeon. And we've actually streamed that a few times. But things turn dark fast sometimes.
And sexual.
And sometimes
Yeah.
people do that intentionally, but also because people do that so intentionally in ours, it kept wanting to do that. And we were like, no. AI Dungeon, come back the other way.
You know what's funny is, and this is just, this is like Vanta Black Dark, but one of our games, and it saves your stories, so they stay on your account. And in one of our games, the story that we went into is we were buying and selling babies.
Yeah.
And there was certainly nothing sexual about it. This was just commerce. But when they're grepping through to try and find offenders for this, I bet mine came up.
But not the story about the candy factory where we ripped off Willy Wonka's face.
No, that
Put
was
it
all
on our main character.
that was all consenting adults.
Yeah, we were we were close to death. We were being surrounded by the Oompa Loompas, and our only Hail Mary was maybe if we cut off Willy Wonka's face, because we had just murdered Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas were closing in. And our Hail Mary was maybe if we take off Willy Wonka's face and wear it sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, it'll fool the Oompa Loompas. And it did.
It did. The bots did not understand that.
If you're dying to have more of that, check out AI Dungeon. Their pricing policy is a little steep because you do need to subscribe to get the good AI, but you can create stories like that.
I'm sure the GPT-3 people are also like, WTF are you doing?
Can you imagine? It's kind of like the the Facebook moderator team, right?
Yeah.
Like they pulled some guys into a conference room and they're like, guys, we're going to need you to read a lot this weekend. Here's the bad news.
But as weird as some of those scenarios we just described from our games were, like, imagine how terrible the rest were.
And a lot of those too, because as a user, you can create your own prompts. So you can like write a little story that feeds the AI. That's how it works. It reads and learns from the reading. And there's a lot of like cat girl, fox girl,
Yeah.
that kind of
It's
thing.
actually kind of frustrating trying to find a scenario to play
Yeah.
when you're like going through the search because there's so much of that.
So people are definitely, and one of the big things that people are outraged about, not that, oh, we must have, inappropriate child content, but it's like, you're reading these? And they're like replaying in their head. They're like,
Oh, no.
thought that was just between me and the cat girl.
All right, what I got for tomorrow?
Business and, I already sorted them and I don't remember.
Well, the Level 1 news bringing you the 411 on 511.
Now that we're, the carbonation settled down, what are your thoughts about
It is a worthy substitute for Orange Crush. I think it's much more carbonated than I remember Orange Crush being, and it has less of an orange flavor, but it doesn't have the chemical aftertaste.
But it does have the headache.
It's not as bad for some reason as Faygo.
Faygo.
Yeah, Faygo's not good, but yeah, my body has said 2 cups is all you can have for a while, so I'm gonna go back to my
Pace
coffee.
yourself.
I feel like that's a strong recommendation.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Big K. Is Kroger nationwide or is that just Southeast?
It's got other names in other places.
Oh, okay. Do you know what they are?
I think it's called Payless, like
That was
up
a
north.
shoe store.
Yeah, but it's a grocery store as well. But it's
It's
got
a-
a bunch of different names.
Well,
If you like orange cream soda, though, or if you don't like orange cream soda, because it's got hints of orange cream soda.
Big K. I don't remember what I paid for that, but I bet it was cheap.
It's definitely cheaper than the name brand.
I think it's got less salt than I'm used to, too. 65 milligrams, 3% per 12 ounces.
That still seems like a lot.
Yeah.
3% of your sodium for 12 ounces? That's not bad.
All right, well, see you tomorrow.
Bye.